right, Johnny, well, now that we're sitting down, let's chat some more. But I'm going to give a little bit of background about you, right? You've actually studied a lot of places, Australia, the US, New York, Columbia University, and then Australia. Oh, that's another Australia. And Sweden, yeah. So why architecture to start off with? Why?
Okay, so it's a fun story. My father and my uncle and my bigger uncle, they're all with backgrounds of engineering. And so I used to hear these engineering stories about how they built buildings. And when I was 16 years old, they told me a story about designing a stadium using a big watermelon. So they bought this huge watermelon and started to slice up the watermelon in different angles. So 90 degrees, 45, 60, and 30 degrees. And then they take it all apart and then try to put it back in to figure out the structures of the big stadium. And I was like, oh my God, so interesting. How can you design something so big and so fun at the same time? And so that story really inspired me to become an architect. So ever since 16, I've been very, very passionate about designs and architectures. And so all my career path was following that direction. Okay.
Were you great at drawing when you were a little kid? You loved drawing and everything? Art, colors, and all that kind of stuff? Yes?
I don't think I was like just jumping in drawing everywhere. I know I take a lot of photos and being interested in different compositions and materiality and details. But it was always, as far as I remember, it was always that one story that gets me, wow, like, yes, that's what I want to do.
Oh, you mean the watermelon story?
Yeah, the watermelon story.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, so what's it like doing architecture? You think you have to be always very creative. You have to always think of ideas that nobody else has thought of. Is that what architecture is about, or / interior designing is all about? And you get a lot of sleepless nights. Yeah. Is that what it's all about? Because that's how people who are not in the know, that's what we think about architecture. Yeah. That's what we think about interior designing. I mean, we're always amazed, like, how do people come with such great ideas? I don't think I'm built for that. That's what I think.
It takes a lot of hard work and compromises.
Compromises?
Yeah, because you always try to push the idea out like 200%, but because of practicality and reality and maybe budget and timeline, so you always find your middle ground in between. But I know my mom really wanted me to do accounting or computer science when I was like trying to pick a topic or a degree for my university. But I told her, no, I really, really want to just design and be creative about it. So eventually I just jump in. But yes, in university it's a lot of sleepless nights, and because you never finishing idea, it's always progressive. So unless you keep practicing and you focus on all the details, otherwise it's very, very hard to become a great architect. So architecture and interior design is about fulfilling other people's dreams, actually. And each of my clients, I really try to sit down with them and really understand what's their motivation or their passion or their dream. What do they want to do with their life, and how can this space or their house or this huge budget they're putting into this project, what it is that drive them to have this idea. And I'm just trying to shape their idea into something that they can see and experience. So that's for me my definition of architecture, that I'm only a tool to help them visualize something they may be very unconscious of. And so architecture for me is more about listening and about turning their voice into something they can see. Interesting.
Okay. So do you think that people seem to have a lot of ideas these days compared to in the past, maybe like 10 or 20 years ago? People are filled with a lot more ideas, not just like, hey, Johnny, I've got this building, design it. Are people getting more and more, I don't know, creative in their minds?
There's two types of clients. One is with a lot of Instagram photos. They go, oh, I want this, this, this. But I think that's normal, because now with the media so fast, it's very easy. But when, like in the old days, when there's no Instagram and just magazine, they would just sit down with you and they just talk with you. And then, so we're trying to visualize that and bring it onto the drawing boards and then show them. So it was, now both is good because right now it's the design obviously works much faster with all the.
Oh, you mean with like computer?
With computer 3D graphics. So
3D.
The bad thing is about when you shorten the amount of time to design, sometimes it's not as easy to be creative because creativity for me it needs research and detailing and experience. So, and also the shortening of the time means the devaluing of design itself. So that's the I don't know. That's the hard truth about designing in Asia. So when you're mentioning, I have the oldest backgrounds in the West. In the West, architecture it's more permanent. They talk about architecture as this idea of timelessness. In Asia, the idea is more about commercialization, and also this temporality to the design. Yeah, so we just have to get around to this idea when you're designing in Asia, then you'll be fine.
Let's talk about some of your works, like Happier Cafe, which actually got an award, right?
Yeah.
How did that come about? What was the whole idea? I mean, the client, they gave you the idea that they want a cafe. What's with Happier Cafe, or what they wanted to use that space for? But it involved a lot of rolls of paper inside, and because I actually did an interview there with the person who was running the place then.
I hope you like the space.
I did. It's something so out of the ordinary. Yeah. So what's with that?
So the client was Zhu Ping and Ming. She has a happiness, like a message. She runs these classes and lectures teaching people about how to be happy.
Yeah.
And that's you think you have a smile and then you're happy. No, actually, there's whole theory and philosophy to it. So she really wanted a space to help and express her happiness and how she wanted to teach people the idea of happiness. So when I sit down with her, it was actually quite hard because happiness is very hard to design in all the spaces because your happiness is my happiness and their happiness is all different.
Right.
So, but eventually through a lot of meetings and research, especially with Ming and her team and my team, we had a paper, and then I asked everyone to write down what's their happiness.
Oh, I think there was a big drawing on the wall everybody was to contribute with their idea of happiness, right?
Yeah.
And it was on that wall at Happy Cafe.
Yeah.
Was that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happened was when I collected all these thoughts about everyone's happiness, I found that actually the most interesting part is happiness happens when you are secluded and when you are enclosed by a space. So you'll also be happy if you're in a group of people, but
Yes.
you're more likely, 70% more likely, if you are just in your own chair, reading or listening to music, or like playing with your dog. So that's very a singular space, what I call it, individual space, not like a group space. So the idea was then to try and figure out how can we, with a limited budget, to have a lot of seclusion of spaces, so you can feel comfortable in.
Oh, yeah.
And because of the creative constraint was that there was virtually very, very little budget, because it was supposed to be a 6 month installation, and then went to 2-year installation. So the 6 month installation, it was very hard to put more money inside of it. So we really try to figure out with the limited budget that we have, what kind of materials can we play with. Eventually, we found paper. So paper with a 200 rolls, 200 meter roll or 300 meter roll turned out to be very, very cheap. And as a production country in Taiwan, you can also find these rolls very, very easily. So we thought, yeah, we can use paper to wrap up the space. We can use paper to create furniture and walls, lightings, beds, shelters, houses. So that's how the whole idea then came about. Let's use one roll of paper and then just turn the paper upside down and then go up the space, go down the space.
Right.
Actually, I'm wearing one of them. Yeah. So this is kind of the concept that goes all around the space and fill up the space. Yeah. And then because we understand that it's a 6 month installation, so we want to be also very conscious of recycling and not just be a waste afterwards. So we are very conscious of the fact that after the exhibition finish or installation finish, we can roll up the paper roll again. But the other advantage of using paper is we want people to express their happiness on the paper. So there was a lot of crayons and pens, so people can just go and be like a kid. You can draw on the floor, you can draw on the ceiling, you can draw on the wall, furniture. And then we can either roll these papers so it have a new surface for people to draw on again, or we can roll the paper so other people can see your happiness message. So once you see my happiness message, maybe you'll be happier as well. Happiness tends to be a virus.
Yeah.
They tend to spread out. And then so the big idea was to, after the 6 months, we can roll up these paper again with all the happiness message and then ship to another country or another city. And then we can unroll these messages, happiness messages, into furnitures and spaces and furnitures. And then we can share the happiness of Taipei with another city.
Oh, that's cool. Is that what you did with the Happy Cafe in Tokyo?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
It's been years since we carved our names on a clock tower door before everything changed. We were big-eyed boys with the salt on our skin, and we'd throw our kites to the wind, and they fly on and on and on and on, on and on and on and on, on and on and on. On and on and on.
Ship our happiness message over, and we also allow their Tokyo Japanese people to write and paint and draw different things. So it becomes a very interactive part of two cultures coming together. So it was very fun.
So what's the next stop after Tokyo then?
I don't know, I hope through your program, there's other countries who might invite us.
All right.